Okay, so let me get a screen share going. All right, so this training is for a fairly narrow group of folks, people who work in agencies, basically going to have a shelter component that participates in both the point in time count that I coordinate from the university, working with Danny, also coordinating pretty closely with Quinn, and then the housing inventory count that Quinn from the COC coordinates. So it's just helpful to kind of go over the basics. And there's two subgroups of people in this area. I think everyone here is of the type where we will not be sending volunteers to your shelter, so you will be conducting the interviews or observations for the pit count and then sharing the information with us, and we'll give the overview of how to do that. And then, although I'm not sure that anyone is currently watching live, a couple of the larger shelters, the Salvation Army and the Seven Hills shelter, they participate in the HIC and the PIT, but we will be sending volunteers instead of their staff trying to interview the very large number of guests that they have. So just a distinction might matter a little bit at points. So Quinn, I often think it's helpful. I have PowerPoint that Debbie made in past. I can queue that up. Do you have something else that you'd like to share? Otherwise, I can just queue up the previous PowerPoint or however you want to give the HIC portion of this overview. Bobby or Quinn?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. My question was for Quinn about the HIC portion. That's yours. Do you have a PowerPoint? I have the previous one that I sent you a little while ago that Debbie's made in past years. Do you want me to
Well,
share that?
right now I'm on Bobby's phone, so I can't share anything. I don't even have my computer in front of me. I did send everybody who is doing the housing inventory count the form for this year, so that should include a lot of the folks that are on this call. Most of them have done it before, so they're pretty familiar with what it entails. If you're new to the housing inventory count and you have questions about what you need to include on that form, just please get a hold of me. You can call me, you can email me. Does anybody have specific questions right now? Okay. If you do, like I said, reach out. If you did not get the form, I sent it to everybody yesterday. If for some reason you didn't get it, let me know either on this call or later on, and I'll make sure that you have a copy of it. It really is obviously separate from the pit count, but it's important that I get that back about the time that we start compiling the pit data so that we can check the accuracy of our bed count to the people that are actually in them. So, anywho, if you have any other questions, just let me know. John, is that sufficient, or do you want me to go over it in greater detail?
Okay, then sure. Okay, then just the thing I'm going to stress though is when Quinn and then I are entering the numbers to HUD in the spring, there needs to be a very high level of match. So if the
Right.
housing inventory for shelter A is saying there were 80 people, we need to be able to have 80 people, and they need to be demographically in the same bucket. So that's why over the years we've learned to coordinate it. And but okay, so we're going to focus on the point in time count. So and again, as Quinn's alluding to, most folks on this call are new, so there are sections that I'm going to go through a good bit quicker, slow me down as need be. Mm, Okay, so okay. A point in time count is a literal attempt to count everyone, every community across the country who receives HUD funding is mandated to do it in the last 10 days of January. If you all could mute yourself, that would be, unless you have content to share. Um, so literal count, last 10 days in January. We picked the specific dates, but they put it in the window. So, and this the snapshot nature, I always think it's worth just highlighting that we all know that it's an inherent undercount. We do our best to get close to a true count. Relatively, we can usually get dead on for a true count with the shelters like yourself, because after the fact we can do some data coordination and reconciliation. But certainly for the unsheltered folks, we can come pretty close, but there's just going to be an inherent undercount. Um, so who is counted? I'm going to go through this really quickly. I mean, you all know who's being counted for the very most part. I'm going to talk about a little bit of nuance that's relevant to you all. Most of you have been doing it for a while and are comfortable and familiar with this. So unsheltered folks are, easier to define. They're folks who are literally sleeping outside in a tent on a city street, more commonly here in Northwest Arkansas, in the forest, in the woods. It would also very much include people who are sleeping in their vehicles. It would include people who are sleeping in like a shed or something like that that wasn't built for human habitation. It would include someone who's, sleeping in a 24-hour laundromat or places like that. Sheltered, again, fairly straightforward. All of you are knowing who you are sheltering. The one nuance I want to talk about is it comes up with some of the VA program and the SSVF program a little bit. Sometimes you might be working with someone who is working towards being housed, but is currently either being kept in a motel using agency funds. Those people are categorically going to be defined as receiving emergency shelter. So again, I think the folks who are doing that are aware of that, but do know that if your agency has, sometimes the DV shelters have done it, if your agency is paying someone's bill to stay in a motel on the specific night of January 29th, we can and should count them as homeless, specifically emergency shelter, and you'll actually find a box for motel vouchered. If you are working with someone who's waiting on housing and they happen to be in jail the night of the PIT count, they happen to be, their sister took them in for a couple of days. As frustrating as it is, they do not meet the definition on that night. And it's all about this magic night snapshot of January 29th, in this case. I think that's probably everything I just said. We do not have any safe havens in this community. All of you are pretty comfortable with knowing if you are an emergency or a transitional housing provider. If there is a lingering question, just shoot me and Quinn an email, but I'm pretty sure everyone knows their level of care. The who is not, I think the only thing I would just add that I didn't touch on was if someone's in like a treatment center or a hospital, group home, that type of thing is also not going to be someone we should be counting as homeless. And occasionally those definitions do get fuzzy. So again, don't hesitate to reach out if there's like an odd case like that. So your role, let me see, most of this, I'm going to kind of go through slides very quickly. This is the same PowerPoint that we use with the regular community-based volunteers, and most of this doesn't apply to you all, but let's see. Okay, this does apply. It's useful to have in mind. There are two forms. There's a full interview that's assuming your resident's consents is we greatly prefer getting the full interview completed. It has richer information. It lets us ask, about disabling conditions and some background history and where they were last living when they were last stably housed, some details like that. But we also have an observation form that's much leaner, more bare bones. If someone is just utterly unwilling to participate in this, it still lets us kind of, for lack of a better term, count them and get credit for them. So has some basic demographics on it, a little bit of information. One thing to note, if you all, especially this group, does find yourself using the observation form, there's a prompt and it flows pretty cleanly. It asks, do you have prior knowledge about this person? Please check yes, and please just briefly say, I'm their case manager, I work in the shelter they live in, whatever, because we let everyone use the observation form. I quite frankly trust it a hell of a lot more when it comes from one of you. If you're going to tell me your client is a Hispanic who's 30 in the 35-year age range, I'm going to kind of take that to the bank through an observation form. If someone on the street is seeing someone and guessing there might be Hispanic and 35, I'm going to treat that with a little more skepticism. So if you are using observation form, please just complete those prompts. Um, Also, regarding people not being willing to complete it, again, can't stress it, just ethically, this is optional for the participants. But one thing that's important, and again, especially for settings like yours, we have we have 7 full days to gather these data. So the point of reference is always where did you lay your head on January 29th? But we are as long as that person was homeless meeting the criteria on the 29th, we could interview them through the following Thursday. So if you have a resident in one of your shelters who was out to work on the Friday, the pit date, something else was going on, just for some of the DV shelters, someone had a bad day in court and just frankly didn't want to answer 20 more questions, then conduct the interview over the weekend. Reach out to them again on Monday or Tuesday of the following week, and we have that window of time to work with. And then just as all else fails, and there's always some of this, it's just there's a lot of moving parts. You are all busy doing your full-time jobs that don't include completing data for us. We're busy on our end. Almost invariably, there's a little bit of missing people. And again, that's why when we have the good solid, we'll get the HIC data first, and then we'll look to say, okay, are we under by a few people? Then through some combination of Quinn and myself, we'll reach out to your organizations to fill those gaps to say, okay, and again, that can be very bare bones. It can be, okay, we figured out that here are the 3 people who are missing, and you're just going to tell us that they're, male, female, black, white, age group, etc. And we can go forward with that and still at least document the number of folks in the community, even if we don't have every question on there. Any questions on those kind of issues? The when you can ask, the interview versus observation. Any questions on any of this content so far? Okay. Um, Yeah, just I think it's going to be pretty straightforward for you all. Do this at the household level. Households are really, for the most part, how people think about themselves. So a couple doesn't need to be legally married. That ain't my business. That ain't your business. So if someone is identifying themselves as basically as a family unit, they're kind of in things together. That's fine. Some of your programs do have some blended families from data I've received in past years. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. An adult child, a parent or two, an adult child, an adult child's little one, that can all go in as a household just fine. If they think about themselves differently, you can also submit them as 2 households. But generally speaking, how they think about it drives the household composition component. Yeah, here's just the other. Most all of you have done this. For folks who are new, I'll just quickly note the kind of question categories, some eligibility stuff, again, making sure they're really meeting the homeless criteria, demographics. We ask if they're a veteran, and then if the answer is yes, there's another few questions. A lot of questions about disabling conditions. These are the most personal questions. People are being asked about substance use disorders, mental health conditions, presence of HIV and AIDS. So give some thought to when and where you ask people. The survey prompts you to say these things. You should be reminding people that questions are voluntary. Someone should feel free to say, yeah, I'm going to answer your questions generally, but I'm not going to answer question 17B for you if they don't want to, if they don't want to give you an answer to the substance use question, there's a don't know refuse box you can just use. And yeah, a few other identity and characteristic questions. Okay, observation form. I think we've already kind of talked through this. And again, the information to help identify people really matters less for you all. I do get that in the larger community, I want to make sure that we're not counting folks twice. So we try to get some information on the observation forms to avoid double counting someone, but that tends to not be an issue for your programs. Um, Very, very few changes for 2026. So for those of you who've done this before, everything about it's going to feel quite similar. A couple of very minor changes on the forms. There were two questions on the observation form that I had in there for that deduplication purpose. I asked to like, was the person tall or short or overweight or underweight? I was thinking I might use those to help with deduplication. I never used them. They always felt a little intrusive anyway, so I dumped them. Added two new questions on the full interview about tobacco use and cessation. A couple of very minor flow things that I'm gonna do a different screen share in a couple of minutes and walk you all through, but I don't think it'll make a material difference. Okay, this stuff, you all don't need the prompts on approaching people. You do this for your job every day. You know your clients. Yeah, we can skip this. This one is just definitely worth, and maybe even you all as a group need to be just a little more intentional here. Make sure that people know that you're asking questions for a different than usual purpose. Again, stress the voluntary nature of it and why we do it. Those types of things. Generally, I estimate that it takes about 10 minutes. So that's usually what I tell people. If someone's verbose, it can take longer. If someone's very, concise, it'll be a little quicker. And yes, I'm gonna talk about the two different ways to capture data in a second, like paper forms versus electronic options. Yeah, you guys know these tips, you know your clients, you know their vulnerabilities. All right, so I want to talk about this. So, okay, this we'll skip. So there were two very different ways to do the same data capture. I love it when programs and people use the electronic versions. It reduces data entry, it makes work easier, it reduces the likelihood of data errors, it avoids paper forms being lost, but paper forms are available. We'll share them with you all. If you prefer to do it in paper, you can then do one of two things with it. You can then take this step and enter it directly into the two electronic options that I'll summarize in a minute, or you can coordinate with me and Danny and hand them off, and we'll have them data entered on the university side of things. So focusing on the electronic, there are two different ways to use it. One is via the URL, and I'll have an email out to this group with kind of like everything in one place, sometime between now and Monday of next week coming. But you can go directly to the URL hyperlink. You can enter it as many times as you need to for as many interviews or observations as you have. That works great for people who are office-based. You can do it on a big computer, lots of space, easy. You can type. Works very well, and it goes directly to us at the university. There's also an app version that can be very, very user-friendly on phones or tablets if you prefer that for any reason. And we'll have, I'm going to show a very short, like 5-minute video on that towards the end of this. And but I'll share the link on how to do that. Again, if you've been participating in this for past years, you're fairly familiar with this. Um, I do strongly recommend whatever route you're going to take, even if you're planning to just do everything electronically, I encourage you to look, especially if this is your first year participating, look over the paper forms so that way you know what questions are coming. One of the downsides of only using electronic is because I've built in a lot of skip logic, like we only display questions based on people's prior answers. You don't really know what's coming. And so, when I used to work as a case manager and was interviewing people and asking about sensitive topics, it's it's easier for us as interviewers if we're not surprised. So I would definitely encourage you to go through the paper version just so you're familiar with it. And for that reason mostly. It also I tend to just be a fan of our electronic stuff has been working very well for 3 or 4 years running, no glitches. I'm still a planning for things to go wrong kind of person. So keeping some paper copies at hand is never a bad fallback. Um, and also, especially if you plan to use the electronic version, I do encourage you to just spend some time and enter some fake data. One of the very first questions you'll see is, are you entering real data or are you just testing, exploring the app? Just note that you're testing it. We know to ignore it. We also know to ignore any surveys that are entered before the morning of Friday, January 30th as well. So encourage you to spend some time getting familiar with it. And yeah, I think that's it on this thing. Um, this is probably the new link. I won't look at it now. And I'm going to show a short 5-minute video that the intern last year made. Danny's going to kick out an updated version in a few days, but it took me and the university's IT department a few extra days to reset some stuff. So he didn't have time to do that. So, all right, I'm going to let last year's intern just walk you through some features on the app. And last thing I want to say about this is Sam spoke kind of softly, so you might want to turn up the volume.
Hello, my name is Sam, and I'm going to be showing you how to use the Qualtrics survey app. So, let me log out here just to get to the beginning. So, when you download the app and open it, this is what you're going to see. So the first step we have to do is log in. Now, this right here that I've just put in the username field is going to be your password.
I will not interrupt much, but I will just point out the password this year, and you'll get this in written material, will be PIT count 2026 exclamation point. Everything else is going to be the same.
Take a moment, pause the video, do whatever you need to do, write that down. That is going to be your password to log into the app always. Alright, now that we have that written down, your username is going to be PitCountGuest. All lowercase, no spaces. So, we'll put our password in there, and that's going to sign us in. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is click on the settings icon, the gear icon in the top right. You're going to click on that, and you're going to see device identifier. This is going to be blank for you. We're going to put your first and last name in that field. I'm going to put my name in there, and then we're going to click Advanced Settings. Now yours is going to look like this. What we want to do is turn on Auto Upload Responses and Auto Update Surveys. And then save and exit. Exit and save the settings by clicking Close. Next, we are going to refresh the app by clicking the refresh button in the top left corner. that will refresh your app.
And the only other distinction I'll say is you'll be seeing 2026, not 2025.
Now, we are going to click the relevant survey. You should only see PIT count 2025. So, we're going to go ahead and click on that. We're going to click download survey. Now, an important thing to note is that if you log out of the app, you will have to re-download the survey. So only log out at the end of the day when you are ready to be finished. You can close the app if you need to take a break or do whatever you need to do. It will not log you out. It will only log you out if you click the log out button in the settings. So we're going to go through how to actually take the survey. So you're going to click take survey once you have someone that you're ready to take the survey with. Now, we're going to put our name here, because we are the volunteer. And I am just going to select some answers. Obviously, you will have real answers here. But I am just going to enter random answers. Let's see. Okay, so once you have completed a survey, it will be longer if you are completing an actual survey, but this is just a demonstration. So this will be what you see once you finish a survey. If you need to immediately start another survey with another participant, all you're going to do is click restart. That will bring you back to the beginning of the survey. You can click this X at the top to exit. So this is an important note. When you click on this survey, you are going to see pending responses and uploaded responses. At the end of the day, these are going to upload throughout the day automatically because we turned that option on. At the end of the day, when you are ready to be done, if you still have pending responses over here, like I have, you will need to click upload responses. It is going to do its best to upload those responses. And now we can see we have 2 uploaded responses because I did a test earlier, and 0 pending responses. You must have 0 pending responses at the end of the day. And that is about it. So, like I mentioned earlier, only click log out at the end of the day when you are ready to be done. Otherwise, you'll have to re-download the survey, and it can be a bit annoying. You can close the app without logging out. And that is about it. If you have any questions, reach out to me or Dr. John Gallagher. I'm sure that during the day we will be providing contact info and ways to get in touch with us or another support person to make sure that the process of helping us goes smoothly. Your help is greatly appreciated.
All right. So, 2 or 3 very small things I want to mention about the app, and then kind of barring questions, I think that's everything I wanted to go over. For those of you who are new to this, you'll need to, of course, download the app. It's available. It's free from either Apple Store or Google Store. There are multiple Qualtrack apps. What you want is this one. The icon looks like this, and it's called the Qualtrack's offline app. So just if you are downloading it for the first time, pay a little bit of attention, move a little bit slowly to make sure you're downloading the correct Qualtrack's app if you want to use it now. For those of you who used it previously, I've had
Dr. Gallagher.
Yeah.
As an update, when I went to upload this, it's named Qualtrics Survey at this point. I looked for Qualtrics
okay.
offline. I didn't see it. So Qualtrics Survey, but there is another Qualtrics that's called Business, and we don't use that one.
Cool. Thank you. And then for those of us who have used it previously, I've had the same app on my phone because I don't replace phones all that often for the past like 3 years or so. It's worked just fine. I've tested it. Don't need to, I mean, assess it yourself on your own device, but I've not felt the need to uninstall and reinstall or anything like that. The last year's or 2 years version is working fine. The one thing I'll just say is if you used it previously, make sure you're hitting that refresh button. Um, I think you won't even see it because, like, administratively, I just this morning killed the 2025 survey and uploaded the 2026, but you want to make sure that you're seeing and using the 2026. Just make sure there's no residue from last year. And I think, let me see what else is here. Yeah, this stuff that went over, we'll send out. We've got a nice one-page handout that'll have all the passwords and all of that stuff in one easy place. The video that Danny's going to make, I'll also post on YouTube as a short, just 5 minutes. So if you're struggling with the app steps, you'll just be able to watch a clean 5-minute video as opposed to wading through this whole, almost hour long training. And yeah, can't stress enough. Sam went over it. Danny's going to go over it. When you're done using the app, please, please, please make sure to push anything up, upload it. It generally works pretty well, but every now and again, you just hit that blue button and make sure your work is getting submitted. And yeah, this is all for folks who are going out to sites. Our contact info's here. Obviously, you all know how to reach me or reach Quinn, and you can also reach out to Danny. And again, none of this applies to you. Yeah, I'm going to turn off the screen share. If folks have, I'm going to do one last bit of screen sharing, just something that's new. It's not going to be just a little bit of changes I made with the survey under the hood. I want to point out a couple of funny little things. So early on, you're going to be asked how many people are in the household, and you're going to enter a number anywhere from 1 until 10. If you have a household bigger than 10, you'll need to actually enter them like 2 different households, but I've never had a household that big. This is not a screen. It's just the only way I could engineer it is when you get to this screen on the computer or the phone, you don't need to do anything. It's just going to summarize the number of people you previously said are in the household. In this case, 1, just advance to continue. Just know that you don't need to do anything other than click the red button. I'm not going to keep going through it. I'm going to show, I did a little bit of programming under the response options. For the first or only person in a household, you are only going to have one choice for the relationship status. They are basically themselves, so just check it. And I'll just show you in contrast when you're completing the same exact question for household members 2 through 10, you will no longer see self, and you'll have all of the other options, parents, children, grandchildren, etc. So just know that that's new from last year and just maybe not 100% intuitive. So, and I am now done, barring any questions that folks have. All right. Well, thank you all for your time today, for your partnership. Thanks for the work you do routinely. I hope you all and those you serve have warm, safe places to be over the next 3 or 4 days. It's going to be a hell of a winter for our little bit of the Midwest. So it makes me nostalgic for upstate New York. And we'll have one detailed email out to everyone in the coming days. You know where to find the 3 of us with any questions, concerns, suggestions, etc. So, all right. Thank you much.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you all later.